You're listening to Rendezvous with the Writer with Bobbi Jean and Jim Bell, only on LA Talk Radio.
Welcome to where writers and readers meet, and story is
It's
everything.
everything.
We're your hosts tonight, Jim and Bobbi Bell.
And you are joining us on Rendezvous with a Writer, our weekly Thursday night program. And Jim, who was that behind that great music?
Alex Dormont and his team, Hot Texas Swing Band.
Texas Swing Band. Yeah. We have a very special guest standing by to join us tonight. Who's joining us?
Emily Goodwin, Galaxy Press. Hello.
Hello.
Hello, Emily. We're so happy to have you with us tonight. And we know originally we had also scheduled husband John Goodwin to be with us. And as things happen, a last minute situation took him to the East Coast. And we believe he's on his way back. Is that right?
Correct. He is on an airplane as we speak, returning from the Kennedy Center.
Yeah, cool. So John, if you still are somehow able to listen now or when you tune in later, we miss you, and we will have you all back in the fall because it's important for us to have a chance to talk to Emily and John. So, welcome, Emily. Welcome.
Thank you so much. Really appreciate you having me on.
Yeah.
Jim's going to do a little bio in a moment, but I can't wait to hold up the cover of this amazing book, this anthology that we'll really be getting into tonight. And it's published by Galaxy Press, and we'll be talking about Galaxy Press as well. And the title of this particular 40th anniversary edition is the L. Ron Hubbard Presents Writers of the Future. And oh my goodness, what a book. So, Jim, do you want to go ahead and introduce Emily, and then we can get into it? Okay.
Emily Goodwin has been involved with book publishing since 2007, including International Writers and Illustrators of the Future contest. She is a producer for the Writers of the Future Annual Achievement Awards, as well as the Online Writing Workshop. She has been a judge for the Independent Book Publishers Association Awards. She is involved in community activities in the greater Los Angeles area, including being vice president for the community outreach for the Hollywood Christmas Parade. And she is an honorary commander at Space Systems Command for the U.S. Air Force and Space Force. Wow. Welcome, Emily.
Thank you.
Oh my goodness. Well, we have so much to talk about tonight, but we just can't move forward, Emily, without you telling us a little bit about your position as honorary commander at Space Systems Command for the U.S. Air Force and Space Force. Tell us about that.
We should salute her.
I know.
No. It's a PR function. I started actually working with the Air Force on PR activities and bringing the Air Force into the Hollywood Christmas Parade and so forth. And I worked with General Thompson. Like I said, it's a lot of PR activities. So worked with them on events and so forth. And then when the Space Force was being created, at that time, the base was the Air Force base. It was called Space and Missile Systems Center. And that was in El Segundo, California. And then when the Space Force got created, it became Space Systems Command and turned into the Space Force. And so I kind of moved over from Air Force to Space Force just by default of location and who I was working with at the time. So it's just an incredible program. It came so far, so fast, and just such impressive work that they do. And it was an absolute honor to be able to do anything to contribute to that.
How fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How fun. I think everything you do is fun.
Right?
Yeah, and we just have to take a moment also about the Hollywood Christmas
Parade.
Parade,
Yes.
which we have a memory, especially as it connects to Gene Autry. But how did you get involved with that? And this Galaxy Press is building. Somehow you're connected to more than the parade. There's other elements of it, right?
Yes. So how it happened? Okay, so the parade it's been oh my goodness, in a few years we're going to be hitting 100 years, 93 years. But the parade itself, its route, it starts on Hollywood Boulevard at Hollywood and Orange, and it goes to Vine, then to Sunset, and then comes back up Sunset Boulevard. So I think pretty much anybody anywhere recognizes those two street names. But our building is right at the beginning of the parade route. We're right on Hollywood Boulevard, and we have a 5-story building here, and we have a 5-story garage. So it just ended up about 15 years ago, when the parade was bought by Associated Television. Our building happened to be the perfect location for hosting all the guests and being the beginning of the parade route. So we ended up getting extremely involved. We used to just participate and have some like floats in the parade and some balloons, and it was like, oh yay, fun, we're doing the parade this year. Now it's like, oh, we're doing the parade this year. It's a lot of fun. Yeah, so we host all the because it is the Hollywood parade, so we have a lot of celebrities that are participating in the parade, and guests, and it's Hollywood. We have all the Hollywood cars and the convertible cars that host all the celebrities. And there's the equestrian, and there's the armed forces, and all. Just it's a great parade. Huge balloons. Galaxy Press ourselves, we have a 5-story pirate balloon and pirate chest from one of L. Ron Hubbard's pirate stories called Under the Black Ensign, and it's Captain Tom Bristol, and he goes down the parade route 5 stories tall. So, but in our garage, we have a way that we can put all the old-fashioned cars up on our roof, and then they drive down. The celebrities drive down right out onto the street. So it works out perfectly, and so that's sort of how we. And then we just, we wanted also the event to be a real community event, bring Hollywood and LA together. And so there's so many people. We get hundreds of volunteers every year to come work the parade, to participate. We get, the military, the locals, the dog shelters, the firemen, everybody we can together from the community to help participate in this event and make it a real community event. And it airs nationwide every year. And there's a whole concert with it. And Associated Television does an amazing job putting it together, and televising it. It looks fantastic, but it's a fun event. It's been, and I don't think it's stopping. I mean, it's tradition for Hollywood.
Right. Oh, that's too fun. And to those of you in the audience who can immediately think of Gene Autry singing "Here Comes Santa Claus," there is a very real connection between that song and the Hollywood Christmas Parade.
And he wrote that song based off the Hollywood Christmas Parade.
Yeah, he sure did. So very, very fun. Do you want to move into some things about Galaxy Press? Because we're talking about the building and such.
Yeah, we are. Nice segue.
Everything non-book related. Let's get it all out of the way,
right? So, do you want to ask?
Yeah, why don't you talk about Galaxy Press? How did what's it about? When did it start?
Yeah, a little backstory.
Yeah, Galaxy Press was formed in 2002, and basically, L. Ron Hubbard as an author. I mean, most people know L. Ron Hubbard as his religious works and Dianetics book and so forth, but he actually has a massive amount of fiction books that he wrote, mostly in the 1930s and 40s, and hundreds of books. And he's had 19 New York Times bestsellers. So this Galaxy Press actually has the rights to all of his fiction books, And we also do what's called Writers of the Future, Writers and Illustrators of the Future, where we publish 12 new authors every year in science fiction and fantasy. And that is the book you are holding up. Yes, that is the latest one. And that's volume 40. So that's been going for 40 years. So we have published over 800 new writers and illustrators over the years through this contest. And it's a full-time, full publishing house here and literary agency for Hubbard and also for the new authors. But the contest was started by Hubbard and continues to endow it to this day.
Mm-hmm.
That's great. You're right about prolific. I was explaining to Bobby this afternoon. The only way I can understand it, because he has one book with 400,000 words. Then he has a series of books with 1,000,002 words. Mm-hmm. I said, he must be there with a pen, ambidextrous and a pen in each hand, and he's writing, and somebody has to feed him because he can't stop,
He wrote 92 words per minute. He had 2 typewriters at the time, and he would have them on both there, right, a backup typewriter next to him, and he would pound away at those keys. And as soon as one typewriter went down, he would get the other one off to get fixed, pull out the backup typewriter, and keep pounding on those keys. I mean, he had a tremendous output, and he would often submit stories to the pulp magazines and get accepted first draft. And he also wrote in 15 different pen names at the time. So during the 30s and 40s in the pulp era, he was writing under a number of pen names. So a number of pulp authors, he could be in one magazine with more than one story at a time because he was writing under different names. That was his solution to getting into the magazines more. So he had a tremendous output.
Yeah. One of the, and we're going to take a greater in-depth look at the book, but one of the chapters that I found so interesting, woven between the contest winners, the science fiction and fantasy contest winners, is a chapter called On Writing in Science Fiction. And it's an excerpt from an interview that he did with the Rocky Mountain News in February of 1983. And it's really, if you are a writer or you think you want to be a writer or you have an inclination to write, but you just get overwhelmed by all the different writing tips out there, you need to read this article.
Yeah.
He is clear on really good, very good questions that he answers. And I found that chapter just illuminating. So that's another wonderful thing about this book is there's other really good tips for writers and readers woven into the stories.
Yes. Yeah. And there are a number of ways you can get a hold of that essay. I mean, obviously you can buy Writers of the Future Volume 40 and read it. But I think we're going to get into a little later also about a writing workshop that we have that's free online. That is another place that you can go and find that essay.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Let's see, Jim. Let's looking at our quick little list here so we don't miss out on something important.
We got, I think you probably want to mention something about all your seminars, but we got a comment here about you traveling. So you spend a lot of time going places too, like John, right?
Yeah, we travel quite a bit. There's a lot of different shows and writing conferences and conventions and Comic-Cons and book fairs that we go to throughout the year. Obviously with the Writers of the Future, we are looking for new authors all the time. So we go out, we promote the contest, we have booths, and we bring authors in to some of these shows to sign books, but not just like the winners for that year. We'll bring in winners from the last 40 years. Anybody who's in that area that wants to come and sign books, we will give them space at a booth to come and autograph books and give them further promotion. It doesn't just stop with you get published in the book. We carry on with them, helping whatever we can with their careers. So we also do panels talking about the contest and the books. And so we travel a lot just for the authors and for the books.
You have something coming up, major writing in-person seminar coming up. Remind me the title of that event.
It's called Superstars in Colorado.
Mm-hmm.
You have a friend that goes there, right?
Yes, and I'm going to give her a shout out. This is Julie Jones. She was our first guest this year, January 2nd. You can go back and pick up the show. And her book was Blood Follows Blood, The Legend of Jenny Sutton. And I know that this event you're talking about, it's like the main thing that she tries to get to
Nice.
several years. Yeah, yeah.
Good.
How can people find out about that? Where do they go to find out about that event?
So that event it's called Superstars Writing Seminar, and you just look that up online and you'll find it. It's like a pre-registered. It's a full several-day writing boot camp. And the founders for the Superstars Writing Seminar are some of our judges for Writers of the Future. Kevin J. Anderson is one of the spearheaders of it, and he's a judge for Writers of the Future. It isn't a Writers of the Future workshop, but it is a serious boot camp writing workshop that goes for several days. And it's about 400 people, I think, that attend every year.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
So before we go to our first very short break, I just have to ask you this. Have you always been someone, as a reader or a writer yourself, interested in science fiction and fantasy? Or because you're so planted in this, you've become a fan?
So I have to say, my first love of reading was the Chronicles of Narnia as a kid. And then, I read off and on. And then obviously when I got into the publishing world, it was a whole new game, I try to keep up with all of our new authors. And so it's a lot of reading with a short amount of time. So I read when I can. But yeah, obviously I got a lot more immersed into this world when I started working in publishing, which was almost 20 years ago now. So,
yeah,
but yeah, it's an amazing field too, especially, we do science fiction fantasy for the contest, but, Hubbard, he wrote in every genre. So, he did a lot of Westerns. And I mentioned when we met earlier, in December, I was at the Cowboy Christmas event with all the Western books, hanging with the cowboys, and they just love the old Westerns. So, but Hubbard also wrote mysteries, and, he did the sci-fi fantasy, but he wrote action adventure, and he was a lieutenant in World War II. So he also wrote military fiction. So he just wrote all across the boards.
Something for everyone.
Yeah, he did a lot of stuff. It's kind of amazing.
Yeah. We are going to take a very short break. And then when we come back, we're going to be talking in depth about this wonderful contest for writers and illustrators and the anthology. But first, here's a word from two of our sponsors that make Rendezvous with the Writer possible. And if you are a writer, you need to find out what our friends Krista Sukup of Blue Cottage Agency and Janelle Madison of Clicks by Madison can do for you. Don't go away. We'll be right back. Rendezvous with a Writer is sponsored by Blue Cottage Agency and Clicks by Madison, your author publicity and book marketing team. Experienced, trusted, effective. Contact them today at bluecottageagency.com.
Welcome back to Rendezvous with a Writer. We're talking with special guest tonight, Emily Goodwin of Galaxy Press. And we're just about ready to talk about Writers of the Future. We do have a question here. What makes Writers of the Future so significant to science fiction and fantasy?
So what is different about the Writers of the Future is that it's a contest, and it looks for just talent alone. It's blind judged, which means anybody can enter from anywhere. It does not matter what color you are, what religion you are, what creed, anything, what gender. Is just based on merit alone. And that's what the blind judging is. So the judges, the stories come in from all over the world. The judges, all they see once it goes through our system is the story and a number. They have no idea who it is. Anything about them, if the name is on the manuscript, it gets rejected. So they just are judging merit alone. And we get thousands of stories every quarter. So it's, it whittles down to the best of the best. And a lot of these authors that are published in Writers of the Future go on to amazing careers. I can name off several of them, but a lot of them have gone off and become New York Times bestselling authors. In fact, between the writers and the illustrators, they've produced now 41 New York Times bestselling books. So,
wow, in 40 years.
Yeah, because in the contest, I mean, some of the best names are the judges for the contest. You have Kevin J. Anderson, who is he writes all the Dune prequels and sequels, and he was just the producer on the latest Dune. He was co-producer on the 2 latest Dune movies. And before that, Frank Herbert, who wrote the original Dune book, he was a judge for the contest. Right now, Brandon Sanderson. I mean, this is if you are familiar with the science fiction fantasy field. But Larry Niven, Robert J. Sawyer, the Dean of Science Fiction in Canada, Tim Powers. A lot of people recognize his book On Stranger Tides, which was the Pirates of the Caribbean, the movies. You probably recognize those. So a lot of big names in the field are the ones who are judging. So these guys are already successful. Everybody's reading their stuff. And they're the ones who are saying, hey, these guys, these are the top ones for this year of everybody who's submitting. So it really, they're good quality stories. And I think you've read a few. So I think you're,
yeah, we sure did.
I was trying to think, the original Dune, when was that written? Do you remember? Because I can't remember. I read the book, but it's been so long ago.
It was. And what was interesting about it, because his son is now a judge for the contest. He does all the Dune sequel prequels, and he did a book about growing up with Frank Herbert and the life and their travels, and wild. That's an interesting one if you ever get around to it. Their family car was a Hearst. But
sci-fi people probably different, right?
But he was shopping Dune around, and it was getting rejected until it eventually got picked up and published, and now it's in the top 3 science fiction novels of all time.
Isn't that amazing? Yeah.
It's amazing. Same with Orson Scott Card, who he's also one of our judges. He wrote Ender's Game, which is also one of the top 3 sci-fi novels, and eventually Tor published that. But it's you never know.
No, it seems like a lot of times that the judges are former writers that had their stories submitted.
It's true. There are a number of them. Nnedi Okorafor, who is she's amazing. She's has quite a prolific career right now. She was a winner of the contest in volume 18, and now she has gone on for an amazing career. She's got 3 shows in the works, one with HBO, one other ones, but she's doing amazing, and she is now a judge for the contest. David Farland, it's his pen name, David Wolverton, he won the contest way back at the beginning, and he became a judge. He's no longer alive, but we have a lot of, I wouldn't say a ton. I mean, there have been over 800 winners, and maybe 5 or 6 have become judges since then. But even Brandon Sanderson, who is the top fantasy author right now, he used to submit to the contest back when he was getting his start. He got, I think he got an honorable mention, and he became a finalist. And then we call it proing out, because the contest, it's only for amateurs. You have to be amateur to enter the contest. It's pretty, you have to have 3 professional publications with up to 5,000 sales in order to be amateur. So it's still pretty open for people, even if you've published even if you've self-published several stories, or you've been in a few magazines, you're still eligible to enter. But we call it proing out, and it's a good thing. It's when you have sold a certain amount that you're no longer qualified to win the contest anymore. So we've had a few people that were really good that ended up proing out. Now they're back as judges. So that's Robert J. Sawyer from Canada, and Brandon Sanderson, and Kevin J. Anderson also, he submitted, I think, 25 times before he pro'd out, and now he's like Mr. Dune guy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool.
Illustrators, the illustrations that are in the book as well, and I can just hold up. You won't catch nearly. It'll just give you an idea if you're watching a little bit about illustrations. But tell us how illustrators enter.
Okay, so very similar to the writers. You go to illustratorsofthefuture.com. You put your, and for writers, it's writersofthefuture.com. You enter just pull 3 pieces from your portfolio, whatever you feel best, your 3 best pieces, and you submit those online to the contest. You can also mail it in, but that's very rare these days that people do, but you still can. But you submit 3 pieces. Similarly, it's blind judged by some of like the most amazing artists, like Larry Elmore from the original Dungeons and Dragons, and just a lot of the illustrator judges, Dan Dos Santos, who did the cover for this year's book. He's amazing. He does a lot of New York Times bestselling books. A very similar array of amazing artists that are judging for the illustrator contest. And it gets judged also quarterly. And there's every quarter for both writer and illustrator, there's 3 winners. So the writers, you have first, second, third place. And at the end of the year, so each quarter, there are 3 winners for both the writer contest and illustrator contest. And then at the end of the year, there are 12 writers and 12 illustrators. And all 12 of the writers and 12 illustrators all get published in the anthology every year. So what happens when somebody wins the contest for the illustrators, they get given one of the stories to do an illustration for. So they get paired up, but the writer doesn't get to see the piece of art. So the illustrator does their piece, and then that gets submitted, and then that's what gets printed in the book. And then when someone wins the contest, we fly all the winners out to Hollywood and the judges, and there's a big week-long workshop, total boot camp on, now that you have proven yourself that you can write, you can draw. Now it's a whole workshops on how to make it in the business. Should they go to shows? What are they, just all there's so many aspects that they learn about, just whatever we can do to help launch their careers. But in the middle of that week, there's a really special day where like all of the winning art pieces are like up in a room on these easels, and the illustrators are like on the sides of the room, and the writers come in and they kind of have to go in and find their piece that goes with their book. Nobody says anything. And the illustrators are like on the side, like sweating, and they're like, "Oh my gosh, I'm so nervous because they're gonna like it or they're not gonna." Anyway, it's very sweet. There's a lot of tears and hugs, and it's a really special moment. And I haven't actually ever seen anybody go, "Oh my goodness, I don't like that at all." And then some have become lifelong friends. In fact, one year, like almost 10 years ago, there was a writer and illustrator, a young lady illustrated one of the winner's stories. And a few years later, they got married.
Nice story.
Oh, that's a nice story.
Yeah. So, it's really nice. And the other cool thing about it is that there is prize money. Each quarter, the prize money is anywhere from $500 to $1,000. And then at the end of the year, there's like a grand prize winner for the writer and the illustrator, and they'll get an additional check for $5,000. But all of the winners come to Hollywood. They all go on stage. They get their trophies. They call it like the Oscars for writers. And then we teach them how to market and sell and do book signings and do media, send them out into their hometowns, and do whatever we can to help launch their careers.
That's great. When we first got contacted by Carmen, which I guess is your publicist.
Yes.
No, he's kind of a faceless, nameless guy.
Yeah,
I went to the website. These illustrations are absolutely unbelievable.
Amazing.
And I looked at the covers of the books, and they're different than a lot of the other books out there. They're not sci-fi. My goodness. And where did they come up with the ideas? You look at them and you think, well, what is that person standing on? Is that a bone? What are they holding?
Yeah. Well, and I think there was somewhere in the book, there was a quote from somebody, I think an artist, who talked about illustrators fine art artists, they're kind of working off their head and
Right.
whatever has inspired them. But an illustrator, they're working with the written word. They have to, it has to be grounded in that story that they are inspired to do the piece of art. And I thought that was really an illuminating comment. And you would remember, I can't recall who it was that said it, but it was really interesting. I might have gone somewhere to a website of somebody that had a comment, a section in the book. And I might have said, oh, I want to know more about that person. I think that might be.
Yeah. Well, it's true. I mean, you have fine art, and it's something that they've created it. And when you have illustration, the difference is it's telling a story. So when somebody's doing an illustration for the book, they're taking the story and they're bringing the story to life in the art, and the art is supposed to show and communicate what that story is about. So when you take one of these Writers of the Future books and you don't want to go read a description about every story, there's, over 12 stories in there, you can literally look at the art and you get an idea of what the stories are about just from looking at the art pieces.
Let's see. I think we're going to take. Step away. Yeah. I think we're going to take another step away, and we are going to tell you about one of the places that you can shop for the books of all of our featured author guests, including tonight's featured book title. And you do that at our Out West Shop affiliate page at bookshop.org. And we're going to hear a little something about Out West Shop and bookshop.org. Don't go away. We'll be right back.
Story is everything. Find a great one on Out West Shop's bookshop. Go to outwestshop.com. Find books and CDs on the menu. Choose Shop Out West on bookshop.org. Browse through featured authors on Rendezvous with a Writer. Explore curated book lists and our featured picks. Add in note cards, calendars, and jigsaw puzzles. One-stop shopping for great gifts. Use the search box to find thousands more titles. Make the switch. Your purchase supports us as independent booksellers. That's our story.
Welcome back to Rendezvous with a Writer. Our special guest, Emily Goodwin. We're talking about writers of the future.
So, Emily, we did read, between the two of us, we probably read most of the stories, and we don't really want to do spoiler alerts because we hope that our audience will say, I have to pick up that book. I have to get those stories.
Exactly.
But we'd love to talk a little bit about a couple of favorites, if we could.
Sure.
Do you have a favorite in the collection? Or we don't really, that's like saying, who's your favorite child? But is there...
I was literally just going to use that. I think that we had a similar favorite in the book. So, obviously the Imagilisk is a great story and it's fun and it's over the top. If you want to talk they're so varied too, because you have sci-fi, you have fantasy, there's light and cute fantasy, and then there's dark, and then there's intense sci-fi, like Non-Zero, for example. That one is a very intense story that kind of leaves you finish reading and you're like, oh my goodness, like it kind of sticks with you because, sort of like this woman, the story starts and she's tumbling in space and you're like, well, how does she get here? And she's obviously upset, and her AI inside her suit is saying, we can put you on, basically put her under and she'll survive longer so that, she gets picked up. And it's called Non-Zero because it's a non-zero chance of survival. So yeah, so that image there shows her in her space helmet and she's crying, but the tears, because she's in space, are kind of drifting up and around inside her helmet. And she's kind of got to get it together because she has to figure out, she is tumbling through space. She's just got to figure out what she's going to do and what decision she's going to make. So it's a very suspenseful story.
I had to read it, I think, twice, only because I didn't want to miss anything. And it took me a little bit just to, what's really going on? Is what I think going on? What's going on? I need to go back and we have a couple others we're going to mention very briefly, but I would love, if it's okay with you, I'd love to just read a short section out of Jody Lynn Nye's comments about what she was looking for when stories come her way, because I felt that every story that we read nailed it. It absolutely did what she was asking for. So this is pretty quick, but what am I looking for? I want a story with a beginning, a middle, and an end. I want your protagonist to grow in some fashion, whether he or she succeeds at the goal. Show me new ideas. Don't retread ground that has been trampled on by thousands of others. Let me hear your voice. Tickle my imagination. Introduce me to new people, new cultures. I want excellent storytelling with great characters and imaginative world building. And I've got to say, Emily, every author in this collection brings it on.
Well, that's what she's looking for, and that is what's in the book. Because out of, like I mentioned, we don't really give out the amount of entries we get. It's a little discouraging for people who are like, well, I have this one story and, was born in the country in Arkansas, and they want to submit, and, it's daunting sending it to Hollywood. So, but out of thousands, these are the top.
Yeah. Yeah. You had a favorite. Do you want to talk about?
Well, I want to ask a question.
Okay.
Do you use the same editor each time, or you different? Each volume has a different editor?
There have been different editors throughout the years. Jody Lynn Nye is currently editing the book. She's the coordinating judge. So at the moment, we have some first readers that pull, because there's so many, they go through and they pull all like the top 50% best ones. And then those will go to Jody Lynn Nye. She'll narrow it down. And then the top ones will go out to the other judges for final judging. So because she's very familiar with all the stories and the book, and she's a great editor, she's been editing the book for the last, I think, 3 years now.
You had a story.
A question?
Oh, you have a question?
You had a question?
No. You had a story that really moved you, and then I went and read it today because you were so moved by it. What was the name of it?
Well, the two I liked.
Well, yes,
the two I read, but the one was 30 Summers, and it's a very interesting premise. I almost thought I was a time traveler,
Mm-hmm.
It, I don't know what you can say about it without spoiling it.
That's tricky.
You just have to read it. You'll never look at a daffodil bulb or flower the same way again.
And if somebody offers you daffodil wine, be careful.
And you mentioned a moment ago a Magilisk.
Oh, I love that story.
Oh my goodness. I maybe because my mom happens to be living in a very wonderful senior living kind of place, but I at 101, and she has amazing recall of previous years, but like so many of us, I don't remember what I had for breakfast this morning. It just spoke to me, and I thought it was so very, again, like a new world. This is a world that's been around for a long time with lots of residents and stories, but it made me wonder, because the imaginary friend is an important ingredient in this story, and it kind of made me wonder. I think I have to ask my mom if, growing up, she never talked about having an imaginary friend when she was a kid, but it makes me wonder how many of the residents where she is actually may have imaginary friends that are filling the need now that they were maybe filling in their youth. I thought it was a wonderful story.
It was so fantastic. I described that to people, and I'm like, how do I describe that story? It's like it's like Mission Impossible in a senior living home with the movie Ifs brought into it, you know?
Yeah, I didn't even realize there was a movie Ifs, but yesterday I was sharing
Yeah.
about this story with a coworker, and she said, "Oh my gosh, you need to see the movie Ifs." And I said, "Oh, I didn't know about that." Who has time to go to the movies when we're reading so much? But I did. I really enjoyed that, and I have found again every story, and the L. Ron Hubbard story, "The Last Drop." Oh my goodness, that was really fun. You haven't had a chance to read that one yet, I
No.
think.
Yeah.
One of the other ones I read was Life and Death and Love on the Bayou.
Oh yeah.
And
Yes.
that,
That's an intense one, right?
yeah,
Wait,
it's very interesting. You got some revenge and redemption in there. That's a serious story here.
It's a serious story. I wasn't, at the beginning. It's rough around the edges for sure, but you get something for everybody in the anthology.
Yes,
you do.
The Imagilisk and the Imaginary Friends, and then you have this one. I mean, very intense message, and then you have this hard science fiction tumbling through space, and a lot of variety of stories. And then you have, like you mentioned, the L. Ron Hubbard story in there, The Last Drop, which was actually written way back in the 30s, and it's hilarious, these monster gangsters shrinking and growing, and it's very funny.
Well,
I just want to say a quick word about the background of these writers. They're so impressive, and they got a resume about that long.
You finally get to the story, the background on the illustrator and the writer. It's fascinating. Yeah. It's fascinating. Emily, we're gonna step away for one more short break, and in this case, we're going to hear from another one of our sponsors, and we are wearing shirts from them. OutWestShop.com. Write this down. Use coupon code BOOKS with an S and save $25 off a purchase of $125 or more. Stay tuned, and we will be back with more with Emily.
Here at the Out West Shop, we're passionate about the American West, the truth and the myth. We're purveyors of fine Western goods. We scout for unique and distinctive apparel, accessories, home decor, and general merchandise that are a reflection of the Western lifestyle. We hunt for unique artisans and craftsmen who are inspired to create decorative art you can wear based on their own love for the story of the West. We round it up and bring it to you. Check out OutWestShop.com when you need anything Western.
Welcome back to Rendezvous with a Writer. Our special guest, Emily Goodwin. And we're talking about Galaxy Press. We're talking about Writers of the Future. And we're talking about Ron Hubbard. There's a lot of stuff here.
Yeah, and John, we wish you were with us. You're here in spirit. Absolutely. So, Emily, we want, with our next little bit of time with you, we want to just make sure that our audience knows all the various places that they can find and follow. If you would even just tell us, there's a couple podcasts that between you and John, you host or you have. Would you tell us about those?
Yes, for sure. So John, who's not on the show tonight, but he does the Writers and Illustrators of the Future podcast. And you can find that anywhere, SoundCloud, Spotify, Podbean, and it's anywhere podcasts can be found. It's Writers and Illustrators of the Future podcast. And he interviews authors and agents and editors and industry professionals. And there's a lot of tips on writing, also on illustration, and also different people in different fields. And he talks to movie producers and astronauts and all kinds of people on there. So there are like over 300 episodes. So you can go, and there's quite a few to pick from. And then we also have a free online writing workshop, and that is it's also free to enter the contest. I don't know if I mentioned that. It's free, and you keep the rights to all of your work. So that's super helpful. It's like one of those things that just sounds too good to be true, but we're going on year 41 here. We're about to publish volume 41. So it's true. But one of the things that we offer is a free online writing workshop. One of the most coveted things was for winners or just entrants wanting to make it to Hollywood to that workshop. So we took like a shortened version with 3 of our judges and put a free online workshop together. Takes you through writing a story from beginning, middle, end, how to write narration, how to write dialogue, suspense, coming up with ideas for your story, everything about writing a story. And you can find that workshop at writersofthefuture.com. So to enter the contest, it's writersofthefuture.com. To get on the workshop, it's writersofthefuture.com. You want to find the podcast, writersofthefuture.com. If you want
How would we find you?
How would we find you?
Or can we?
writersofthefuture.com. But you can also go to the Writers of the Future Facebook page. It's Writers and Illustrators of the Future. It's all very easy. On Twitter and other places, it's at WOTF, WOTF contest. So it's funny when you're around Writers of the Future long enough that it gets abbreviated a lot, and they say, people are like, "You're doing the WOOF event," and I'm like, that doesn't really translate well when you don't know Writers of the Future. But yeah, WOTF contest on a lot of social pages. But otherwise, everything is Writers and Illustrators of the Future. And then for the books, the books are sold anywhere books are sold. So you can Amazon, GalaxyPress.com is the publisher. But we want you to buy volume 41 on Bookshop, right?
Yeah. 40's there now. And bookshop.org. And thanks for bringing that up, Emily. And I will put on all of these shows, I will put a link to how you can find the book on our page at bookshop.org. And what's coming up? Is there something coming up like next you would want people to know about now?
Well, yes. Actually, on the 10th of April is the next big Writers of the Future Gala event. That's for the release of volume 41. But if you want to watch the event live, because we stream it live online all over the world, you can sign up for the Writers of the Future newsletter. So you just go to writersofthefuture.com. There's a little link there to sign up for the newsletter. And then it gives updates on who the quarterly winners are. We give writing tips in there, all the updates. We do like in mid-February, we're doing a live Zoom Q&A with Jody Lynn Nye. Anybody can attend. You just have to be on the newsletter to get the link to be able to attend. So it's a good idea if you want to keep up with all of this to just go to writersofthefuture.com and sign up for the newsletter there.
That's perfect. That's perfect.
We need to wrap ourselves, but I had a quick question. Did we talk about the Author's Quill show?
Oh,
the
yeah.
Podcast.
Yeah. Well, the Author's Quill is another weekly show. It's every Saturday at every Saturday at 1:00 Pacific time. And that's at United Public Radio Network. And it's called Author's Quill. You can look that up. And we interview every week one of the writers or illustrators or one of the judges, and sometimes even other authors that are just friends of the contest. And but that's a back-to-back 2-hour show on Saturdays. That's live, and you get a lot of writing tips on that one as well. And you find out from the winners their journey and how they got there and what it was like when they won. And so it's fun.
Very fun. Let's see, Jim, you have a quote.
We do have a quote, and this is from L. Ron Hubbard. It's been my experience that almost everyone at one period or another of his life has harbored a desire to write.
And we are going to kind of wrap up the show. Emily stays on camera right to the end. Again, thank you so much, Emily Goodwin, for being with us tonight. And again, we say hello to John, and we hope he has a happy landing and gets home safely tonight. Next week, you may remember, if you follow the show regularly, that due to the fires in Los Angeles, we had to actually cancel a show a few weeks ago, and that show is coming back next week. We will have Bill Markley with us, and Kellen Cutsforth, and Henry Park, and we are going to be talking about a couple of major myths of the West and the truth or myth. Bill and Kellen are going to get into a fascinating conversation about, so was Wyatt Earp a good guy or not? And what happened to those guys in Bolivia? Did they make it out alive or not? So join us next week for what should be a really entertaining show. And my goodness, I think we've covered it
We've
all.
come to the end.
Well,
Emily,
thank
again,
you so much.
Thank
you. Really
you.
appreciate you having me on.
we just had
It
so
was
much
great.
fun.
A lot
And
of
I
fun.
hope that you can make it in April to the event in Hollywood.
We're working on it right now.
We are.
Believe me.
That's
Great.
the plan right now. We'll keep you posted.
Thank you.
So
As
keep
we,
writing, and we'll keep reading.
and as we always say, it's always a great day out west.
Catch you down the trail.
Thanks, Emily.
Bye-bye.
Bye.